you live in interesting times. This English expression, often claimed to be an ancient Chinese saying, but it's actually neither. It's something that's being repeated a lot these days. We may have a feeling that the world as we know it is falling apart, and we don't know what's going to happen next. Good evening, my name is Maia Mazurkiewicz, and welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. Uncertainty is a feeling all humans dislike. We prefer to be in control, and we usually want to know what's going to happen next. We fear the unknown, and that feeling is often exploited in influence operations. But with the world as it is today, do we even need influence operations to be in fear? The new US administration is shutting down government agencies and institutions, including some that were tasked with countering disinformation. And with generative AI on the rise, we're facing growing uncertainty about what's real and what isn't. My first guest joins us to explain what effect this could have on democracy.
Max Lesser, Senior Analyst on Emerging Threats, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He specializes in emerging threats, disinformation, and influence operations. With experience in cybersecurity, public policy, and strategic communication, he has contributed to safeguarding US elections and countering foreign malign influence. Max previously held leadership roles at Darktrace Federal and Epirus, focusing on AI-powered cybersecurity and defense technologies. A Harvard graduate in English literature, he has published extensively on disinformation campaigns and hybrid threats.
Max, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us straight from DC.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Today we are talking about uncertainty, and I think that US is more than ever in the state of the uncertainty. A lot of decisions were made also influencing those that are countering disinformation. How do you see it from the perspective of the community?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we had three major government initiatives that focus on countering foreign malign influence that recently were shut down. So one of them is focused on foreign malign influence countering foreign countries, which is incredibly important. And that was the Global Engagement Center. And unfortunately, it got shut down. The FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force also got shut down, and there was a division of the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency that focused on election security, and part of that mission involved foreign malign influence, and it was also shut down. So there's a lot getting shut down right now, which is maybe not the best news, but what I hope is that there can be some bipartisan action to actually rebuild this counter malign influence division of the government, which did actually an incredible job in 2024, exposing campaigns that were targeting our elections.
Maybe let's focus a bit more about those campaigns that were targeting your elections. What have been discovered there?
Oh, wow. There was a lot. There was really a lot. But the wonderful thing is, again, many of the campaigns that crossed a certain threshold of impact or reach were addressed very quickly by the US government. Some of the most notable activity came from a campaign known as Copy Cop, and there were a lot of videos that, staged videos, classic Russian disinformation tactics, staged videos, paid actors, false claims, and some of these videos actually gained a lot of traction. But again, the wonderful thing was that the US government responded very promptly to them. The concerning thing is that a lot of the different efforts within the US government that dealt with this issue no longer exist. So hopefully we can rebuild moving forward and get some of those efforts stood back up again, if in a new form.
Exactly, and those campaigns were only happening during the electoral campaign, or you've seen them and tracked them as well during the entire timeline?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely, the campaigns did not stop when the election stopped. And they didn't start when it started either. Obviously, the United States, like our partners and allies in Europe, were constantly under attack by our adversaries, Russia, China, and Iran. And so, yeah, it's not starting when the elections start and stopping when they stop. And so with considering that these U.S. government initiatives have largely been shut down, I think the work of nonprofits, the work of organizations and researchers outside of the government has never been more important when it comes to exposing foreign malign influence.
Is it still happening? Like the civil society is really tracking the system and showing what is happening in terms of the FEMI Operation Influence happening in US?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm certainly tracking it, and I know some of my peers are. We have some really incredible efforts outside of the government in the US that focus on exposing malign influence. There's the Digital Forensic Research Lab, which is obviously renowned. There's the German Marshall Fund. We have some really great initiatives. We also just have some
But they also
researchers.
lost some money on it.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Like the situation with this, so just to sort of take a step back, like the issue is that this issue has become highly politicized in the US, and it's led to some real issues. And again, what I'm hoping is that America can wake up and realize that this is not a partisan issue. This is a national security issue. And a lot of my colleagues here at FDD have really been pushing this point that we need to reach across the aisle. We need to all realize that we're all being targeted. And especially, people focus on, for example, in 2016, okay, so Hillary Clinton's campaign was very heavily targeted by the Kremlin. Well, look at 2024. Trump's campaign was targeted very heavily by Iran. China has gone after people on both sides of the aisle. Actually, Spamouflage, which is China's flagship influence operation, really aggressively attacked a lot of Republican congressmen.
And in terms of democracy, do you think that there is still possibility of cooperation in between two sides of Atlantic?
In terms of the two sides of the Atlantic, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, hopefully. I mean, like, it's, some of our strongest partners and allies are in Europe. And honestly, Europe is also really at the vanguard of a lot of the counter foreign malign influence work. I know incredible researchers at Alliance for Europe and other organizations within Europe. I've been trained by some incredible researchers from Georgia, based in Tbilisi, who are really at the vanguard because you all in Europe have been hammered by foreign malign influence for years, and you've developed incredible techniques for exposing operations, particularly coming from the Kremlin. And we have a lot to learn from you guys. So I really hope that there continues to be collaboration because I have learned an incredible amount from my European colleagues. And I think our country has a lot to learn from the way that you guys have built societal resilience to foreign malign influence and disinformation, including this TV show itself. Something like this in the United States would be fantastic.
And do you specifically focus as well on the narratives? I wonder if those narratives from Iran, but also others, are pushing as well the uncertainty that we're already having and feeling, that is bringing as well the fear and anxiety in people.
Yeah, definitely. And I caught a little bit of your last interview, and I thought that was wonderful that you were focusing on some of those deeper issues. But yeah, certainly, I think all of the United States adversaries and the adversaries of many of our allies and partners, Russia, China, Iran, they're looking to exploit those psychological vulnerabilities in their campaigns. And there's a classic, I remember when I first learned about this issue, there's a classic term from marketing called FUD. I don't know if you've ever heard about it before. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is certainly what I see. And, I'm constantly doom scrolling and looking at these campaigns on social media. And it's like, that's what they're going after quite often, right? They're going for those psychological vulnerabilities. They're trying to exploit our uncertainty, our fears, and in the United States, increase our division internally, and also trying to erode the strength and unity of, the transatlantic, Euro-Atlantic, United States-European partnership as well. That was a huge effort, particularly a huge emphasis, particularly in the Kremlin's efforts, was to undermine the strength and unity of NATO. and the transatlantic partnership. So they're going after us where we're weakest, and it is definitely a concern.
And it seems that they are succeeding in it. Divide and conquer. So I would say that the thing that we really need right now is to come together and work together. And I hope that also can happen outside of the political space.
I agree, yeah. I think when people wake up and realize that we're all being targeted, it doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, or, American or European, we're all being targeted. And guess what? I think if you look at these campaigns, you realize that our adversaries do not have our best interest in mind. So hopefully, there can be a lot of cooperative, collaborative action to try and counter these malicious campaigns that are really trying to undermine the stability and security of our societies. So,
and that's a great call. Let's hope there's going to be more and more of them. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Now, let's see how disinformation and the media can fuel uncertainty.
He's all dressed up today. You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
Trump is the big bully on the block. There's nothing more clear about the action of Donald Trump to switch sides among world powers. This is it. We have now done away with 70 years of the post-World War II transatlantic alliance. At the center of it is NATO, but he has effectively sidelined it.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total efforts, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money.
It was good to see that Macron did that because it is the truth. He kind of put Johnny back in his box for about 5 seconds. And as soon as the conversation ended, he repeated that Ukraine invaded Russia. He repeated it. Now, here's the thing about him. He repeats everything over and over and over. And Elon Musk's X is now promoting whatever he says on an electronic monster. Everything runs through X for the US government. He actually has a Doge account, which isn't even a real government entity. Musk is unprecedented situation with any administration in the history of the United States. We have never had a private citizen partner with the President of the United States who is including him in the cabinet, and he has never gone before the Senate for a confirmation hearing. And he has multiple contracts with the Pentagon on his space projects and multiple conflicts of interest.
But also our nation's American astronauts. One of them.
How do you feel in times of uncertainty, and how do our brains respond to this precarious state? What can we do to build resilience and, more importantly, to live a normal life when it seems like the world around us is falling apart? We'll talk about that and more with our next guest.
Leigh Harrington, MD, psychiatrist. She's a physician and psychiatrist specializing in team CBT therapy, which she teaches and practices to help individuals achieve personal growth and empowerment. She completed her medical training in Michigan and her adult psychiatry residency at Stanford. Dr. Harrington has over a decade of experience providing mental health services and administrative leadership, including serving as medical director for Yolo County Mental Health Services.
Leigh, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us from Davies, California. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Maia. It's a pleasure to be here.
And well, today the topic of the episode is the uncertainty, and more and more people are saying that we are living in the unprecedented times, and very often we don't know how to deal with what is happening, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And how do you talk with your patients if they're coming to you, if they do, with how to deal with the world as we don't know what's going to happen next?
Yes, you're so right. We are living in unprecedented times with a lot of uncertainty. And psychologically for us, uncertainty can bring fear, anxiety, worries, and those are important things to know how to deal with. They can be overwhelming and distracting and cause distress for people.
If you're looking at the world and kind of you are concerned, right, of the situation in the world, what can give you comfort in this state?
As you mentioned, we have this desire for control. And it's a simple thing to kind of say to ourselves, focus on what we can control. But we could talk about like specifically what would that look like? And then even ahead of that, even before we take those steps to focus on what we can control, we want to honor the fear and the anxiety and the worries that come up. When we're worried about something, when we're fearful, it shows really beautiful things about us. It shows how much we care about ourselves and others in the world, how those things really matter and are important to us. And those emotions that we feel, those fear and anxiety, they can also be bells and signals to us of actions that can be taken.
At the same time, in the influence operations, because we are talking as well about disinformation in here, fear and anxiety, and also this uncertainty, because as you said, it's bringing the fear and anxiety, is being used a lot, right? And I think that a lot of people have the tendency to kind of calm their nervous system through scrolling in social media. But does it really help?
Right, exactly. As you were saying, we kind of can calm or think that we're calming or work on calming our nervous system through seeking information. We're living in a time in which there's an abundance of information. There were times before when it was really helpful to seek out information, hundreds of years ago when we didn't have lots of information. It would be very helpful to get some information. We could make some good decisions and do some good planning. And now we have so much information, and we may think, let me do a little scrolling, let me gather more information, because as humans that can be helpful. But as you said, knowing which information is accurate information and misinformation, inaccurate information, that can become overwhelming for us now, and misleading and triggering fear and anxiety.
And what are the techniques that you can tell to our audience, as you maybe give to the patients as well?
So some of the things, a good way to frame it is to come back to the self and to come back to the present moment. And sometimes we're worried about coming back to the self because we're thoughtful, caring people, and we might be afraid of being self-centered or something. However, if we're not caring for the self, we can have a hard time caring for others. So returning to simple things, and things that we may think of as basic, like taking care of our sleep and our healthy diet, having exercise. Exercise can be very helpful for the downstream effects of uncertainty, depression, anxiety, spending time in nature, spending time connecting with people who are important to us and we care about, as well as doing some sort of nervous system regulation. And we'll often hear that talked about as meditation. Meditation is a great way to do it, but it's not the only way. So sometimes I give people and do with people exercises to help them regulate their nervous system when they're feeling upset and dysregulated.
And there's also a saying that there's only certain things that we can have influence over, and those that we don't have influence over, we should not care about, right? Easier said than done, but maybe you can...
Exactly. And so I think we have so many wonderful sayings, and sometimes our challenge is how to apply those in our own day-to-day life. right? So what I think is helpful when we think about the beautiful saying and the serenity prayer of attending to those things that we can control and not those we can control. And then the wisdom to know the difference. One is kind of trying to figure out, like, what are the things that we have control of and not? And then one of the greatest powers that we have is our power of attention. So I think directing our attention is one of our mechanisms for focusing on what we can control, so that we may have tons of information and concerns and valid worries, and validating ourselves that, that's a beautiful thing about me, that I care about that and I'm concerned about that. Knowing I can take some action, do some planning, that's great. And then knowing that I can direct my attention. Where am I going to attend to right now? Maybe now I'm just going to attend to this meal that I'm making for my family. Maybe now I'm just going to put my attention on the nature that I see in front of me. Maybe I'm going to put my attention on some writing that I'm going to do.
Thank you so much. And I think bringing the attention to our breath is also something that is very calming.
Yes, the breath is maybe one of the most helpful places we can place our attention. And what's great about it is that we always have it with us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this calming conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you, Maia.
Thank you, Leigh. How is generative AI used in election disinformation campaigns?
Generative AI is a powerful tool in election disinformation campaigns, enabling the creation of highly convincing false content such as deepfake videos, synthetic audio, or artificially generated images. These tools allow disinformation actors to mimic candidates, fabricate scandals, or spread false narratives tailored to exploit societal divisions. By automating the production of such content, generative AI can amplify disinformation at an unprecedented scale, allowing for micro-targeting specific voter groups.
There's very little we can ever be certain about. We don't even know what's going to happen an hour from now, but it calms us to know. It soothes our nervous systems when we hear a politician giving us a vision for the future, and calmness is something we so desperately need right now. It seems like getting all the answers is an unattainable goal, and we are destined to live in a state of uncertainty for the foreseeable future. Every day brings new surprises, and that's especially true during political campaigns. So until next time, keep calm and think deeply.